Shabbat Shalom, everyone. There was an instance this past week where my family were sitting at the dinner table. I love summers because things are slower and quieter, and we actually get to, except for those who are at sleepaway camp, we actually get to have dinner together on most nights at the same time. And, you know, this, like another day, like every day, something tragic and terrible came across the news screens, and I start talking to my wife Andrea about it, and she gives me that look. It's sort of like eyes popping out of her head. You know, do we really want to talk about this in front of the 5-year-old type of look? And we table the conversation until the kids go to bed. I often see myself struggling as I way too often sort of doom scroll through my Twitter feed at every terrible headline, what I want to share with my kids. If it's ailing this world and breaking my heart, and what do I keep to myself and put on a fake smile and project as if all is well in this world when I'm struggling and feel like anybody who turns on the TV or opens a newspaper knows that nothing is well in this world. And so I thought, you know, why is it that I got that look or regularly get that look? Why is it that we try to protect our children with that childlike innocence from the world as much as possible? And how much harder it is as the world gets more easily accessible. Without, you know, breaking news, Twitter accounts or 24-hour-a-day news stations on cable TV, we didn't know what was going on the other side of the world at all times. Right? I wasn't aware every minute that a rocket was launched from Gaza. My phone didn't buzz. I didn't have an app that was reminding me of that. Or I wasn't aware my entire Twitter feed didn't become about the latest mass shooting on 4th of July. But the more we choose to connect with everything going on in the world, for better or sometimes for worse, the more we understand how dark this world can be. When I feel that I want to share with my kids, but I also want to protect them from that darkness. I want to smile at the small, innocent things that they smile at, protect them with that childlike innocence so that I may have heard about the latest mass shooting, but they are, you know, tangling across the kitchen floor with our Labradoodle, and that's the experience that they should have. Maybe I'm at fault, not to ignore the breaking news of the world, but to disconnect more. How beautiful for me is it Shabbat, not because that darkness stops in this world, but for 25 hours, I'm sort of protected from that darkness. And I feel better as a result. Childlike innocence. Maybe, at times, we all need to disconnect in that way. Rabbi Harold Kushner taught that the world was full of chaos, and whenever we experience God, it is those moments of calm within the chaos. But such a theological statement is also an ideological statement. It means that the default reality is not peace, is not happiness, is not harmony. The default reality in this world is one of chaos. Maybe we need to accept that, and maybe as a result, we need to do more, I need to do more, to disconnect from that chaos at times. Because if we aren't prepared to do that, we can't find those moments of calm, not just moments for God and moments to see God, but moments for calm and that childlike innocence to find holiness and beauty in this world. There's a moment in our Parsha, in Parashat Balak, that requires us to suspend belief right? That involves a talking donkey, which is not so odd because we've had talking snakes in Genesis, right? Talking animals are not so odd, but it's odd enough that Midrash explains that God must have created this specific talking donkey on the eve of creation, on Friday afternoon before Shabbat, specifically for this moment in time, for this purpose. God's hands, metaphorically speaking, must have been so involved in this miraculous character. And Bamidbar Rabbah says that the Moabite princes who accompanied Bilam saw this donkey talking and were shocked. What's odd is that Bilam doesn't think twice about this talking donkey. He hits the donkey and responds. You see, the donkey stops in her tracks because she sees an angel standing right in front of them with a sword. Tries to go another way, and Bilam hits the donkey and says, keep moving. And this happens a few times, and then finally, the donkey screams out, why are you hitting me? For there's an angel among us. And then, the Torah tells us, God uncovers Bilam's eyes, and he finally saw that angel of God, that messenger of God, standing in their way. Again, suspend belief for a second, ignore the fact that there's this talking donkey, and try to understand this idea that Bilam, this supposed prophetic voice, the supposed mouthpiece for God, who could offer blessings and curses, rabbinic tradition, unlike other false prophets, don't actually identify him as a false prophet. Most modern biblical scholars see that he was seen as an acceptable prophetic voice among many different religious traditions. And he's going out. Balak wants him to curse the Israelites. He says he can only do what God tells him to do, really sees himself as a messenger of God, and yet he doesn't see this angel standing right in front of them that a donkey does. The donkey, well, in Torah, it's often a female donkey that is used for travel, to ride upon, because the female donkey could provide milk and sustenance upon one's travels. The donkey was still seen in biblical scripture as an uncivilized, wild creature. In simplistic terms, the simplest of creatures, of mammals, and yet the donkey was able to see the angel right in front of them, and Balaam wasn't. And it took Balaam, it took this donkey to show Balaam, to remove the blinders from his eyes, the holiness right in front of them. And maybe, because he was going on this mission to curse the Israelites as King Balak had instructed him, he was so blinded by that idea of cursing them, he was so blinded by the darkness in his mind, by the darkness that he experienced, by the darkness that he had surrounded himself with, that he could no longer see the holiness right in front of him, could no longer see the beauty, the light, God. Rabbi Laura Dunham Kaplan notes that Balaam's donkey shows him how much more there is in the world, shows him the holiness in the world all around us that we too often take for granted and ignore. And so, go back to this dinner table encounter with that look from my wife's eyes at me, saying, stop talking about that in front of our children, which is actually more than just about protecting them and their childlike innocence. It's about us trying to take on, all of us, a bit more of childlike innocence in this world. When we focus on that darkness, which is so ever present when we focus on the world's challenges, it becomes more and more difficult to see the holiness right in front of us. But when we disconnect at times, not ignore, but when we disconnect at times, and like a donkey, just focus on what is happening in the moments, in the presence of walking forward, not the past, not the future, then we're able to see God's angels in front of us. We're able to see God's angels among us. So maybe I need to start keeping more things from my kids, not share all of my own concerns with them, not use them as my therapists to share my anxiety and all that is on my mind, but not to protect them, not to keep them safe. Rather, so that they're not burdened with the same darkness that we all at times feel, so that they can continue to see God. They can continue to see angels among us. And then I hope, can continue to see God through them and in their eyes. Shabbat Shalom.